Our World Insideout was born late at night when my husband and I were talking about the current economic crisis while trying to purchase a place in short sale in early 2009. It was a conversation interwoven with my original thesis entitled Inside Out 2004, in which I photographed the home I grew up in. The home was the site of abandonment of where my father disappeared. The old emotions of feeling displaced were awakening. The thought of what people in the United States might be going through as they were losing their homes was familiar to me. The purpose with this project is to create an international visual dialogue over my lifetime. I set out with the original intention to show how we use or do not use resources surrounding the home. However, during the production of Brazil, my mind was constantly questioning my objective. The word inside out is one. There is no delineation between what happens inside our homes and what is translated to the outside world. Brazil was chosen as the first international stop because it was the easiest to approach. I had spent 4.5 months prior living in Rio and learned a bit of the language.
Pronto, gente. Vou tirar 3 fotos.
Vila Tupi is a world totally forgotten. A one-block street of what we would consider side-by-side duplexes with the charm and history of old Portuguese homes. I couldn't believe the state they were in when I entered the first house.
The feeling I get from this location is actually completely different than anything I've seen in the United States. It actually reminds me of maybe what it might have been like at Katrina, actually, after the flood, because this is leftover evidence from a huge downpour of rain. There's still water on the floor.
Prior to arriving, Rio had a massive flood, one of the worst in years. I could only imagine how that flood had further destroyed Vila Tupi.
What's really interesting, though, I think, is the color of the walls and the layers of paint that have come off, showing different times of what people have painted this place. Apparently it was pink at one point, which is kind of funny.
I'm able to meditate when visiting the places that are void of people. The quietness is beauty to me.
The sadness is always an underlying theme that's always there. But at this point, this is so far gone. This has been like this for a long time, and you can tell. The sadness is no longer present. That emotion doesn't even exist anymore in this building. It's interesting when you think about all the homeless people that there are all over the world and all the homes that are empty, and somehow there isn't a bridge in between the two to connect the two. On one hand, it's really nice that it's marked as a historical place, so they can't rip down the buildings. But on the other hand, they're absolutely useless the longer they sit here. The longer they're abandoned, the more the rain comes in and destroys them. The whole idea of owning a home is that once you have it, it's an asset, even here, because then you can sell it again and it becomes this cyclical system of reuse, of people buying a home, selling it. And if you put homeless people in it, what's the incentive for them to take care of a place, other than to simply live in it and move on? And that's the bridge in between that I think would be interesting. At this point, I don't exactly know how to do it.
Colonia Juliano Moreira at one time was an institution for the mentally ill. It could be considered a suburb of Rio because of its magnitude. Today it is falling apart, and people are living in fairly dangerous situations in terms of building conditions.
Oi?
Posso tirar uma foto com você, Teresa?
Comigo?
Sim.
Pode. Casa da Dona Teresa tá bagunçada. Tá bagunçada.
Que quadro é seu favorito?
Oi?
Que quadro é seu favorito?
Quem que ela tá falando?
Que quadro?
Quem que ela tá falando?
What room is your favorite? Que quadro?
Qual o seu quarto
Qual?
preferido?
Ah, porque ali chovia. Aí eu passei pra cá.
Aqui.
Linda disso.
Agora isso acabou, né?
Acabou.
Como é que vai receber os colegas em casa agora?
Foi muito bem. Eu não fico mais vergonha porque eu te amo.
A casa nova para atleta significa um recomeço. E agora, ela pretende conquistar muito mais.
Interacting with people without the aid of a little liquor to help with my inhibitions, while speaking in Portuguese, was the biggest struggle. How do I show these people respect without being able to hold a full-on conversation with them? I was on their land.
I don't live there, so I need to literally pick people's brains to understand how their housing situation works. And apart from the housing situation, I find spaces really beautiful. In history, there's been a running theme of documenting abandoned places and finding beauty in that because you can create a story about what may have been.
Salvador, being the first place I visited, was the most nerve-wracking and exciting. I knew I was on a tight schedule, and a day before taking off had finally made contact with the Movimento Sem Terra after 1.5 months of seeking out a relationship with them. So it was wonderful to jump on the plane knowing my efforts had finally paid off. It was a totally new experience, a city I'd never been to. I was shy, but thrilled at the same time. I didn't know what I was looking for at first. There were parts of the city still alive, even though some of the oldest buildings were there. And there were places sealed shut with mortar, windows and doors. I can only imagine what was dead inside such an airtight, coffin-like structure. Jorge, my guide, was incredible, and he was moved by the experience we had together. After I left, he made a trip out to a campsite of the Movimento Sem Terra and took pictures of the area. It left me realizing that I had given a spark to a Brazilian by simply working on this project. It has been the greatest return. I chose the Hasselblad because I like composing in a square. The outcome is like a window intended to see into another's world. It also makes the process more approachable for the subject. I don't have a camera pushed up against my face. It allows me to better interact with my subjects, if any at all. This place originally, at Part 69, was originally one house by one gentleman who had built the bottom. I think it was this one that we're in. He was old enough that he could no longer climb the stairs anymore. So his daughter took over the property, but unfortunately she didn't care for it at all. And it started to slowly fall apart, and squatters came in, and then there were drugs involved, and from what I understand, it just became a really horrible situation. Itchiberi came into play years later when the place was a disaster zone, and he really wanted to buy the place, but he had to go through a lot of work to get all the people out, all the squatters out, which he eventually was able to do, and then slowly he started turning over each house one by one. Now we see it today, and they're all finished, and people are living in them, and it's really cool. Right now we're in the represão building in Santa Teresa, and it has a famous pool outside that used to be
a central social location for everyone to gather and play. And it's completely abandoned at this point. It hasn't been taken care of. They're afraid it's going to fall, and where it's going to fall, it could fall on the houses below, because there's a favela that's actually surrounding the outside of the building. So when we came, we talked to Cristina, one of the owners, who lives in the building, and she said it's fine to shoot, to photograph, but be very careful. You can't shoot in this direction, because if they see you pointing a camera at you, they could shoot back at you with a gun. She was actually standing in her kitchen explaining this in the exact spot where she was standing, where someone had shot through her window. And then we talked to the building manager, or in this case, it would be equivalent to an association, condo association manager. He said, absolutely not, we can't shoot at all. So I went out, totally guessed, set my camera down on the ledge, took 3 photos, and walked away. I don't think I've ever seen this many plants growing in a place. Even Villa Tulpi, with the floods, there is one place where there's stuff growing outside, but not inside. We're on the 2nd floor, too, and it's growing from the floor. Walking into the house that had been abandoned for over 15 years was amazing. Amazing that through Brazilian law, with some exceptions, this can be the destiny for places in estate disputes, while remaining among a sea of multi-million-dollar homes. In this instance, an elderly woman passed away in her home. It was 3 days before she was found. Her daughter was in a mental facility and the only heir. Within just 10 minutes of being there, it began to rain. The house was neither inside nor out, with a bush growing through the living room floor and the ceiling raining in through the holes where the light fixtures once hung. We had to be careful to avoid the scorpions in the house, and the dampness, mold, smell, and look of the place just made me want to run away. Sao Paulo was a city we blew through in 3 days. The speed of the city matched the speed of which we were going to places. But being inside the 2 settlements at the Sem Teto changed my idea of time. There was a sea of temporary structures in front of us. With the little that these people have, they still managed to invite us to lunch. Barisopolis was the last day of shooting. I'm a fan of always saving the best for last, and this was it. Oddly enough, Barisopolis translates to Paradise City. Our guide that day was the leader of that particular location within the favela. His name, Ivanildo. He had a smile from ear to ear. He was so proud of his community. Went inside the house. At first, she didn't want me to actually photograph her. She didn't think she was pretty enough, and actually she had incredible eyes. But being able to talk as little as I can in Portuguese with them, it makes them more comfortable so that they understand what it's for, and also that I can actually return the image to them so they have it when I'm finished with the photo. Tá bom, acabou. Obrigada. Você quer ver a...
There is a balance between making people comfortable while allowing them to still be themselves while capturing them. I am just as awkwardly timid as them. This is their home, and I am exposing it and thus an extension of them. Again, I was reminded of each of the favelas I entered throughout this trip. These were the places where I felt a bond with the community. These were the places where, even though I was an outsider, I was accepted. These were the places, funny enough, where I was safest with my equipment. These are the places that we can learn from. There is such a divide between what I experienced in Brazil versus Chicago versus New Orleans. The ingenuity to create housing far surpasses what I have yet to see and capture here in the United States. People take it upon themselves to build their own home. They do it in masses in excess of thousands. I barely scratched the surface, and if anything, learned that I need to spend more time in these poor communities. But poor in the sense of money is all it is. They are proud of what they have, happy that someone has come to celebrate what they have accomplished, but they will almost always mention as I pass over their threshold that their house is simple. Where we started from was simple. I find I am nostalgic for that simplicity, for the one-on-one, face-to-face contact. I struggle to connect in this world of technology. This project has made it hard to return to the States. To walk down the street without the eye-to-eye contact, find myself saying hello to passers-by, startling them. I have finally admitted out loud, I do not belong here in Chicago. I am still displaced. But will I ever feel like I am at home? The project will continue to grow, bringing up questions of class separation, individuality, sustainability, beauty and destruction. This project has an unknown destination.